And there's another front opening in Israel's war against Hamas. Cybersecurity experts are warning that international hackers are increasingly targeting Israeli websites and infrastructure. In one case, the Jerusalem Post news site says it was forced offline several times in recent days. Groups based in Gaza, Iran and in Russia are among those under suspicion.
In cyber war, there are no clear front lines. Even for experts, it's difficult to determine which groups are behind recent cyber attacks on Israeli websites.
I think it's very important to be cautious of anything that you see. Misinformation and disinformation are going to be very prevalent throughout all of this. Groups may claim things that weren't necessarily attributed by them done by them.
There have been reports about misinformation being spread via an Israeli rocket warning app. The hacker group Anon Ghost claims to have managed to insert fake notifications on the app, with phrases such as "death to Israel" and "the nuclear bomb is coming." The aim of these kinds of attacks appears to be creating panic and confusion, but there are also attempts to cut off civilians from potentially crucial information. More than 100 Israeli websites have been downed by distributed denial of service or DDoS attacks. Hackers flood websites with requests until their servers collapse. One prominent example, the Jerusalem Post, one of Israel's most read newspapers, was downed for more than 24 hours. The hacker collective Anonymous Sudan claims to be responsible for this attack. They describe themselves as an anti-Western, pro-Islam hacker collective, but this claim is doubted by experts. It's also doubtful if they are cooperating with Hamas.
I think we do need to be careful of saying directly that they have coordinated with Hamas. We don't know that. We don't have that insight yet. However, these cyber attacks are working to their advantage to have the psychological aspect of taking down the systems of Israel, perhaps meddling with the alerting systems and allowing rockets to get through.
Another hacker collective, pro-Russian Killnet, has even threatened to target all Israeli government systems with distributed denial of service attacks. A more concerning hacking strategy is trying to get access to IT systems of critical infrastructure. A Microsoft report said that in early 2023, hackers used fake LinkedIn profiles to pose as software developers. They tried to manipulate employees into installing malware. It's not clear if these attacks were successful. Experts fear that hackers could potentially use installed backdoors to destroy critical infrastructure.
In the instances of malware, what we've seen a lot in the Ukraine is wipers being used to wipe systems, wherein they will target a power station, perhaps, and install wipers to shut down the systems there. And I've seen recently coming out from Ukraine that actually has more impact than a bombing, because that can shut down a whole area rather than a bombing on the system, which would just shut down that one power station.
In case hackers get access to critical infrastructure via malware, the consequences can be devastating. With hackers adding more complexity to an already extreme situation, citizens are likely to be the main victims.
For more on that, let's bring in the military analyst, Marina Miron from King's College London. Marina, there are indications that groups aligned with Russia are involved in at least some of these latest attacks. Why would Russia target Israel?
Good day. Well, it's a good question because there is an issue with attribution. So directly linking those groups to the Kremlin would be difficult. However, looking at the broader context and at the Israeli-Russian relations that have reached a very bad moment last year because of the Israeli condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it would be logical for Russia, or at least to wish to create more chaos. However, these attacks shouldn't be taken very seriously. As we have heard, these are DDoS attacks, which create more noise and confusion and have a psychological impact rather than being a serious security threat.
Now, in the past, many cyber attacks on Israel were blamed on Iranian hackers. Are there any indications that Iran is involved now?
Well, if we look at the motivation, Iran could indeed be involved. And again, here we have the same problem as with the Russian-backed hackers like Killnet. To what extent does the state determine their activities? Are they acting out of their own accord? Are they trying to monetize and gain some prestige from the ongoing conflict? This is something that cannot be said, and at this stage it is too early to say. That being said, I do not think that they pose a significant threat to Israel's cybersecurity at this stage.
Talking about cybersecurity, how important is cyber warfare, both offensive and defensive, for Israel's military strategy?
Well, that is an important point, because Israel, being a small country lacking strategic depth, has indeed emphasize the need for a secure cyber environment. So in 2017, Israel created the Israeli National Cyber Directorate, which deals with deterrence and resilience alliances, and is sharing information both with the intelligence community, with the private sector. So Israel has built up very good cyber defenses, comparable to those of the United States, and is investing into it. And cyber defensive and offensive are both important, not just for the critical infrastructure, but for they play a component in military operations. So cyber would support normal military operations of the IDF, and the IDF too is engaging in cyber deterrence and cyber offensive measures, and these include not just cyber offensive measures could go into kinetic measures such as in 2019. That being said, what we're seeing now are DDoS attacks. Therefore, it is to assume that Israel has prepared for these kinds of threats, and more serious threats can possibly come from, not from lack of cyber defenses, but as we have heard, from social engineering, where a human operator would be tricked into installing some sort of malware.
The military analyst, Marina Miron there. Thank you very much, Marina.
Thank you for having me.
Now let's dig a bit deeper into this with Stephanie Suren. She's the head of DW's digital department and joins me in the studio now. Hi, Stephanie. Tell us more about who's really behind these cyber attacks against Israel.
Right. Little disclaimer, it's hard to know because, groups may claim responsibility, but then we don't know if they are responsible, if their attacks have succeeded. But I'll name three who are most likely involved. One is Anon Ghost, which is an international hacker group. They have a anti-Western, anti-Israeli agenda, and they were the ones who caused those false rocket alarms, really, trying to cause disturbance with Israelis by alarming them that rockets were coming, which weren't coming. Then there's Killnet, which is a pro-Russian group. They have become very visible in the last year when they attacked pro-Ukrainian countries, or countries that were supporting Ukraine. And now they've turned against Israel. They've issued a statement saying they will attack Israeli government sites. And thirdly, there is Anonymous Sudan, which claims to be a pro-Muslim group from Sudan. And they have actually been the ones who downed the Jerusalem Post website, as mentioned in the report.
Now, you've mentioned stakeholders. Who are they?
Well, Killnet is one stakeholder, or a proxy of a stakeholder, that's Russia. Through Killnet, we know that Russia is most likely involved, as it's such a pro-Russian group. And then I said before, there's Anonymous Sudan, which claimed to be a pro-Muslim group. But actually, when they first appeared on Telegram, all their communication was in Russian. And only after experts remarked on that did they change to Arabic. So experts think that Anonymous Sudan is also Russian affiliated. So Russia is definitely a stakeholder. Iran is obviously involved in terms of they always constantly attack Israel in the cyberspace. This time there hasn't been any obvious involvement in attacks. They probably let their proxies do their work for them.
What kind of damage can they do?
Well, so far the damage hasn't been extensive. They can obviously hack critical infrastructure if they can get to that. On Telegram, they said hackers claimed they had hacked the Israeli electric grid or even hacked the Dome missile defense system. That would be quite severe if that sort of thing comes through. So far, it's been mainly causing havoc, sowing misinformation. They stopped people from getting to their news sources. They were able to display pro-Palestinian messages on billboards, on websites and so on. So it's sort of havoc and misinformation. That's the main damage so far.
Last question, a very brief answer if you can. Is Israel well defended, you think?
Yes. Israel is constantly under attack, so they've got great defense systems in place. The US have just upped their support in the cyberspace for Israel, and then there's the Israel citizen brigades who've also stepped up. So I'd
civilians
say yes.
sort of helping out.
Helping out, like in Ukraine.
Very good. Stephanie Suren there.
Thank you.
DW Digital. Thank you, Stephanie.